So now let's move on to our next session, which talks about reshaping wealth management with technology. So this panel is moderated by Mr. Basu, founder CashRich, who is joined on this panel by Mr. Ranjit Pawar, Managing Director, Data and Analytics, South Asia LSEG, Mr. Anshul Arzare, Chief Business Officer, Yes Securities, and Mr. Nishant Mishra, Director of Product, Kristal.AI. Please give a huge round of applause for the experts. So this, Sougata, I'll hand over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome to this session on how technology will shape wealth management going forward. I have a great set of speakers here who have immense experience, and they'll share their insights on this topic. So, as you all know, post-COVID, the wealth management space has kind of transformed. A lot of new investors have entered the market, and these new set of investors have different priorities, they have different expectations, and they are more tech savvy. So how can wealth tech companies transform themselves and cater to this new set of users who have different priorities in terms of their need for customized and personalized services? With that, I'll request each of the panelists to introduce themselves and probably start with an opening remark on how they are using technology. So maybe we can start with Anshul.
Yeah. Hi, very good evening. I'm Anshul Arzare. I head business of Yes Securities, and we are primarily into helping the clients to their journey of wealth creation. And I think it's like we are now a tech company. So any wealth management, wealth advisor outfit or any broking outfit today has to use technology to build their inroads to the client's heart. It's just cannot be done without a technology. So technology at some point of time, which used to be a support function, it's actually the function today. So that's how we perceive tech in the today's scenario.
Hi, I'm Ranjit Pawar. I head the South Asia business for the London Stock Exchange Group. And what we do is mainly empower customers across the spectrum with data that's not just relevant, but also timely and accurate. And we cover a spectrum, a very wide spectrum of customers, ranging from not just banks and financial institutions, but also to corporates and governments. And as part of our business, I think the most evident part of our business is in the name itself, which is the London Stock Exchange. But we also deal with the post-trade setup, which is our London clearing house. It's one of the largest clearing houses globally. And then the third part of our business is the data and analytics business. That's the division which deals with not just data across asset classes, but also some interesting benchmark indices such as FTSE Russell. So that's what our business is all about. And I think I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about what influence and what impact we are having on the wealth tech industry as well.
Thanks, Ranjit. Nishant?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nishant. I'm head of products at Kristal.AI. So what Kristal.ai actually does is it gives you unparalleled access to unique investment products and unique expert advice on how to build your portfolio across wealth. That's it, yeah. Thank you for writing.
Great. So as we all know that the stock markets have corrected post the Ukraine war as well as the US Fed raising interest rates. So, I wanted to know from the panelists how they are viewing the market now and what impact that would have on their business. The Demat account openings compared to, post-COVID, it was 15 million, then 30 million a year, and now probably it will be slowing down a bit. Also, the SIP inflows currently are strong with more than rupees 12,000 crore of monthly SIP inflows. However, we may see a slowdown in case the market corrects. So maybe Anshul, you can let us know how you are viewing the market now.
See, the good part which has happened with COVID being on the background is people get a lot of time to realize that there is something called personal finances, which they have to look at more seriously. And they got the time also to look at more seriously on those sides. So hence, plus the technology which played a big role in the way the accounts have been opened in the last 4 to 5 years. Now it's a very completely comprehensive digital journey. And by sitting in your house, you can open your account in 15 minutes, which earlier used to be a process of physical signing and all. So with that, we see a huge number of retail investors coming onto the board for one, ease of account opening, for one, ease of making an investment. And the third thing which is important to look at here is the information which is available for these people to transact. At some point of time, what to buy, which stock to buy, what does the company do, what is the background, how is the performance, all that data was very limited at some point of time. But today, you have enough or more on Google and YouTube where you can take an informed decision on your own. So these couple of things, and which is ultimately the background of everything is technology, and obviously 4G, the data. We are the country which has the cheapest data packs available across the world. So which has helped the investors to take a decision of investing on the fly. So I think that is one of the basic reason why we have seen that number of demat accounts which we have opened. So what we have not opened in the last 20 years, we have opened in the last 2 years. The number of PIN codes which we could penetrate on opening a demat account is 98% in the country. So this is unprecedented. 98% countries PIN code have a demat and a transaction account now. And obviously, as Sougata said, mutual fund is around 12,500 crores a month of mutual fund SIP inflows. All this is because of the ease of transaction and ease of that information which helps you to make a decision.
Yeah, thanks, Anshul. So, Ranjit, how can we empower end users so that they can take more rational decisions and have a better investment experience?
Thanks, Sougata. I think it's a very interesting question, and I want to relate to a very small incident that I came across during the pandemic. And like Anshul just said, the pandemic was a huge trigger for a lot of people to get over the fence and enter the market. I come from a very small village of 5,000 people. I've spent most of my life in Mumbai, but that's my hometown. And I was there in 2020 to escape the pandemic, like a lot of us, to get away from the isolation and boredom of the city. So I was working from there. And typically, in Indian villages, the conversations are around politics, around, agri-market prices, and so on. And I was part of a conversation where someone casually asked me, so how's the market? And my, immediate response in that context was I started rattling off what I understood of the soy markets, what I understood, of the onion markets. And agri-commodities is one of my favorite topics, so I started rattling off what's happening there. And midway, he stopped me and said, I meant the crypto markets. And it was such an eye-opener for me. I don't think I would have expected in that landscape, in that context, for somebody to be discussing crypto. And then he went on to talk about various things, about the stock markets, about, ETFs. And it was such an interesting thing to just witness unfold, personally for me. So that brings me to how do we deal with this challenge? Because on the one hand, you have this last mile investor in a very different, demographic, in a very different technology environment where mobile is probably the tool for them. And on the other hand, we have our HNIs and ultra HNIs and our wealth advisors who also we have to serve. So it's a huge spectrum, to kind of service. And the way we do it is we focus on the experience. So what we've tried to do is address it by the customer experience that will fit the most. So for example, we broadly are broken down our wealth offerings across 3 areas. First is only data. So there are a lot of customers who are sophisticated enough to just take our data in the form of data feeds, for example, and turn that into something which works well for their end customer. And they know how to do it. They have the capability, they have the investments, they have the technological expertise. So those customers can work with pure content, pure data. Then there are customers who ask us to partner with them and build visualization tools for their end customers. For example, a customer portal where they can visualize different data sets. So there are customers in that segment as well. And then the third segment is customers who want something off the shelf. Again, that's a bit of a sophisticated customer who's comfortable with a ready product. So for example, a wealth advisor in a bank, we have off-the-shelf products like our Icon Workspace. So these are some of the desktop applications that they can readily use, which give them data, give them charts, give them analytics. So these are some of the experiences that we have tried to capture as part of our strategy. And I think that's a very important thing for all of us to understand from the end user's point of view, rather than sort of, just try to sell, what we are good at creating. So that's how, Sougata, we see the changing landscape and how we are responding to it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the anecdote. And we have also observed, many people who have entered these financial markets, and crypto has kind of captured their imagination, and they have traded crypto last year. This year, probably they are not having that great an experience, but let's see how it goes. And Nishant, what about international investing? Even post-COVID, we have seen people investing outside India, stocks like Tesla, etc., sparked a lot of interest. And how do you see the trend in international investing?
Yeah, I think this is something which actually honestly attracted me towards wealth management space. I mean, post-COVID, almost everyone, each one of us around here has become, I would say, mobile first. For everything else, we take our palm and bring a mobile to our face, and every answer is out there. It was there previously also, mostly thanks to Google. But now for everything and everything, you go to your mobile apps. And what we have seen at Kristal.AI is, for international investing specifically, I mean, I think we are at a stage where almost everyone, each one of us has now become aware that, okay, we can buy Tesla, we can buy that by amount or by units, or, fractionalize the way you want, the way buy via INR, as low as 1 INR. I've seen many ads around out here. And I have seen that trend over at least last 10 to 12 months increasing significantly. But I still see a hope where diversification actually is put up on a forefront, where users actually understand, each of us here understand the value of diversification. So there's a difference in return and risk profile, right? I mean, I know all these are technical terms, but those are reflected in our behaviors, and in over time, over long term, in how our health also pans out. So diversification, I think, helps out there. As long as you understand and as long as we understand, I think that's what Kristal.AI aims is. We are trying to make a better diversified portfolio, both globally and locally, and make you a better, so that you are able to make a much better investment decision.
Thanks, Nishant. New millennial investors, the Gen Z investors, they are looking for personalized services. And Anshul, so how are you using technology to personalize the investment options? How are you serving the customers better?
Yeah, Sougata, I think you have to, there is no other way but to use technology to do that. So for that, we have to understand that what is our new customers. So we all know that wealth is increasing. We are moving from a $3 trillion economy to a 5 to maybe 20 over a period of time. So obviously wealth would be there to be managed. But ये customer कौन है आज की तारीख में? This customer is, if I could see that, ये 4-5 typical characteristics of this customer. First of all, he is a very impatient guy. So I mean, going beyond to a baby boomer or a Gen X and all that, so millennials and Gen Z, they are very, very impatient customers. Why they are impatient is, in our journey, हम लोग की life में पहला screen आया जब हम लोग 10 से 15 साल की उम्र के थे, तो TV आया. दूसरा स्क्रीन आया जब हम कुछ ग्रेजुएशन में थे, तो कंप्यूटर आया. तीसरा स्क्रीन आया उसके और 10 साल बाद. तो हमारे पास तीसरा स्क्रीन आया तकरीबन 30 साल की जर्नी में. वो था मोबाइल फ़ोन. और पहली बार भी जब वो आया तो वो एक्चुअली मोबाइल था बात करने के लिए. अब ट्रांजैक्शन का मीडियम हो गया है. बट आज जो जनरेशन है, द जेन जी विच वी कॉल, आज वो पैदा ही 3 स्क्रीन के साथ हुआ है. तो his attention span is very, very less. So one challenge which we have to look at addressing his wealth management is his attention span is very, very less. So with the help of technology, I keep telling we need to know him more to show him that less. That is the characteristics we have to manage to these new set of customers. Second thing is, this customer, the Gen Z, मुझे सिखाओ मत. Don't teach me. Tell me, I will be able to grasp what I want. So I have an identity, I will identify. जो एक ज़माने में baby boomers 1946, 64 bonds and all that थे, they were very patiently listening to a wealth advisor, wealth manager and following their instruction. This generation has an independent thought process around what they are supposed to do and what they want to do. So they want information, but in their own fashion to grasp. Not that I am a student, you are a teacher, teach me and I'll follow. So that's the second trait which we need to address. Third is, everybody is looking at a very, very personalized service. Hyper personalization is the key, which again cannot be possible without using a technology. As I said that I should know the customer well enough to show him that small. अगर मैं उसको 4 पन्ने दिखाऊंगा तो कोई पढ़ने वाला नहीं है उसको. He needs a very, very specific information in a crisp manner, maybe less than a minute. Fourth thing which we need to really understand from his behavior is he's a doer. He understand himself and his first priority in life. हमारी life में पहली priority था चलो कमाना शुरू करो. We have to support the family. Right? Second priority was या कोई business में था तो business build करना है या नौकरी करना है आगे बढ़ना है. Either priority है कि what is my purpose in life. He starts from there. Now with that purpose in life question comes a very, very subtle factor of ESG. That I will do something which is good for environment, good for socialism and all that. So his purpose in life is not पैसा कमाना या आगे बढ़ना या family को support करना. So this is the fourth characteristic we are dealing with. So hence I will not be surprised when some point of time 5 से 6 साल में हमारे को पोर्टफोलियो का एक ESG स्कोर डेवलप करना पड़ेगा और कोई हमारे पोर्टफोलियो में इसलिए इन्वेस्ट करेगा क्योंकि उसका ESG स्कोर ज़्यादा है. When I say ESG is environmental social governance, तो वो उसके लिए वो इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर होगा. रिटर्न शायद इतना बड़ा फैक्टर नहीं होगा, बट ही हैज़ टू बी पार्ट ऑफ अ जर्नी ऑफ अ बेटर अर्थ, यू नो. सो दैट्स द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स विच वी आर डीलिंग विद. सो आई फील ऑल दिस कैन नॉट हैपन विदाउट टेक्नोलॉजी. I cannot personalize things without use of technology. And last but not the least would be obviously risk which comes with the investment through digital media. So this customer is digital. You know, उसको सब कुछ digital चाहिए. वो physical meeting का ज़माना अभी बहुत पीछे हो गया है. और forget about digital medium. Now he is talking about digital assets. So for me, what is an asset? आज की तारीख में हमने आज तक इन्वेस्ट किया तो हमारे को जनता हम लोग को बताते हैं कि भाई एक इक्विटी है, एक डेट है, एक गोल्ड है और एक रियल एस्टेट है. ये हैं 4-5 एसेट जिसमें से आपको मिक्स करना है. लेकिन अभी एक 5वां वर्टिकल आ रहा है विच इज़ अ डिजिटल एसेट. सो मच सो पीपल वांट टू इन्वेस्ट इनटू बाइंग अ डोमेन. शायद इसकी वैल्यू बाद में बढ़ जाए. NFT जिसको हम कहते हैं, नॉन फंजिबल टोकन्स. यू नो, ऑल दिस इज कम्प्लीटली न्यू स्पेस, बट न्यू एज कस्टमर would be wanting to invest in all this, and as a wealth manager it will be our responsibility to give. Responsibility means you have to do business, मुझे करना पड़ेगा, because run of the mill equity, debt, commodity, currency, real estate is gone things. Bigger things in life are ESG, digital platforms, digital products, digital, actually I mean it doesn't exist but it exists, you know. So वो हमें ऐसा लगता है, but for him that's the purpose of existence. So these are the challenges I think as a wealth management team or a wealth management service provider we have to really work on and come out with. नहीं किया तो 5 साल में कस्टमर तो रहेगा बट प्रोवाइडर शायद ना बचे.
I think, Sougata, I think I would like to add on here. I think what Anshul said is something what we have been seeing across. I mean, for us, most of the investors and the users are actually based out of Singapore, Hong Kong and UAE mostly. And just building on that and how technology plays an important role, what at Kristal.AI what we are trying to do is we are trying to build Netflix of investment options. So what that means is you sit on Netflix, you can see Squid Games, right, and enjoy it. It's a Korean series, right? Here at Kristal.AI, you get access to not only Korean bonds, but Spanish bonds, US-based venture capital funds, and private equity funds too at the same time. So, and I don't know if how critically have we seen Netflix, but the time you figure out your first series or movie that you want to watch on Netflix is very low, extremely low, and mostly done on the home screen itself, right? that is exactly the same thing that we are trying to do at Kristal.AI. It is helping out till date, but it's a very long way to go.
Great. I think both Anshul and Nishant have given us some great insights. One aspect that I'd like to just add to this is in investment compared to, say, food tech or e-commerce, the time to deliver the service is like, different, because in Swiggy, like, you order and you get in 30 minutes and that's done. But in investment, especially which is long term, somebody has to stay invested for 5-10 years, and only then they can properly get the return. So the customer service or the investment experience is not exactly the UI UX, how pretty the app looks, but what is my final account statement telling me, like, after some time, whether I'm really making money or not. The app might have dark mode, but if I am in terrible loss, then that won't help. So it's very important that we use technology to personalize the services. And obviously, the market has its own way of teaching lessons. So maybe millennials who were too excited with finfluencers will also learn some lessons. And you cannot really, jump that time frame that you need. You need patience, and only then in long term, somebody can make money. Otherwise, after the bull market, many people will become long-term investors because they will have losses in their portfolio and they'll just wait to break even, which we have seen in several market cycles. So with that, I'll just request Ranjit to tell us how unstructured content like news and sentiment analysis could be used to provide better wealth management services.
Thanks, Sougata. I think news is always a hot topic. And we as an organization, a combination of London Stock Exchange Group and also Refinitiv, our legacy is very deeply embedded in news itself. I mean, for a lot of people in the audience and also for a lot of our customers, we continue to be called Reuters. That's how deep the association goes back, because people still identify us with a news provider. Although the case is that we are far, far larger in terms of data provision. But news is always of interest to everyone. Now, given the plethora of news sources today and just the volume of news that is out there, it's very difficult for most of us to make sense of it and to actually apply it in the form of a program or an algo. I think it's not the simplest thing to do today. So just ingesting the volume of news out there, leave alone digesting and making some sense out of it, requires the role of technology to be far greater in the news space today. And that's what we are trying to do. So for example, news analytics, I think a lot of us are probably already dealing with it. A lot of us are probably planning to deal with it. What we do is we take unstructured data, such as news. Now that could include news stories, it could include news headlines, it could be small buzz from the market. And we first make this into a structured form, which means that we make it machine readable. So even a machine should be able to read and make sense of that news. So that requires not just expertise in technology, but also deep expertise in understanding the news business itself and the correlation between news and how people make decisions in the market. And for us, given our legacy on both fronts, data, technology and news, we've been able to do a very good job of that, I'd say. For example, we today can provide you news analytics which can be tagged by the asset class, by a specific asset, by a geography, by a market, and your machines, your algos can actually make decisions based on the feed that you are taking from us. But we don't stop only at creating news analytics. We also have created something called sentiment indices. And that's a very interesting thing which probably a lot of people in the audience might find of interest. So while news analytics can give you some signals, such as a sentiment signal of positive, neutral or negative, sentiment indices is something that actually scans across the spectrum of human emotions. So starting with something like risk, joy, fear, threat, there are various human emotions that are at play even when a trader is making a decision. And how do you capture that human emotion from the news that is all around us? So what we do is we take a blend of news, but we also take a lot of leading data. For example, what's being expressed on social media. What's the general sentiment about a particular asset class, about an asset, or about a particular geography? What is the general sentiment coming out on social media, on websites, on blogs? And try and give you a leading indicator, because news, as we all know, is actually a lagging indicator. The event has already transpired. So there's very little you can do once you have the news. Not to say that you can't do, but you could make an even better decision if you have a leading indicator. So what we do is we combine the sentiment that is getting expressed across social media and various other online platforms with news sources, and we come up with what is called a sentiment index. And we do this across nearly 40 human emotions. So imagine every human emotion having a particular index, and you can correlate how that index is moving with, say, a particular benchmark index, like an S&P 500 or a Sensex or whichever index you are following. You can actually start looking at correlations between the sentiment index and the actual benchmark indices. And that could become an invaluable input to your trading decisions. So what you can see here is, from news being simply an expression or a report or a coverage of a particular event, it's now moving towards becoming a data set. So today news is actually becoming data. And that's what we are trying to do with unstructured data. And of course, it's not limited to news alone. News is an example that I took because it's the easiest for us to relate to. But this can be extended, and we have extended this even to research reports, for example, or to annual reports of companies. We can pull all the data that we need using intelligent tagging and create analytics that you can then correlate with your trading decisions. Sougata, I hope that sort of answered.
Yeah, that's great, Ranjit. So, Nishant, as you're operating in different countries, and wealth management is kind of facilitated with the RegTech for KYC, etc. So, which technology solutions are helping you to do the KYC across, different geographies? How are you managing, say, compliance in different geographies?
I think that's a very good question, because unlike post-COVID, almost everyone and each one of us have seen the teams growing specific to customer success and sales. Essentially, for us, the compliance stream actually grew significantly, and the reason being, we are regulated actually in 4 countries. That's Singapore, UAE, India, Hong Kong, and KYC honestly is actually a challenge for us, and it is still there right now. In fact, Singapore is the only country where, thanks to SingPass and some of their government initiatives, we were able to onboard and complete the KYC quite smoothly. But for rest 3 countries, including India, for India, by the way, Aadhaar works significantly well, but I still see, I cater to HNI clients, right? And for the HNI clients, specifically not the young base, but at least for the traditional base, right? I've seen and I've been on the calls where the end client is convincing their CA to give me documents so that they are able to get onboarded, right? And CA is always like, Batra साहब, आपको क्यों चाहिए documents? क्यों आपको Tesla का share खरीदना है या SpaceX का खरीदना है? And we always see that kind of challenges and barriers whenever we are just onboarding the clients. And this is not limited to, I'll tell you honestly, KYC. Another challenge for us is the fund transfers. So investing in dollars is backed by LRS, and there's a cap out there in terms of LRS. But transferring your funds cross borders still remains a challenge. But I think recently I've seen government has taken some very good initiatives. They have introduced some sandbox experiments where there are new players coming up to ease the fund transfers. But to answer you in quickly and shortly, I think we do complete fund transfer and KYC completely in-house. So we haven't partnered with any third party, and the reason being, due to these 4 kind of regulations, we are bound by the strictest of the regulations, essentially, which has the most stringent conditions, and where we generally try to keep the security and the data with us.
Thanks, Nishant. So one of the other aspects of finance which helps in proper wealth management is behavioral finance. Just assuming that the user will consume a lot of data and then they'll take all rational decisions may not always be true. So I wanted to keep this question open. Anybody can take it. Like how you are using technology or how you plan to use technology to address these behavioral finance issues, because not everybody will be financially savvy and financially literate to look at all the data and then take a rational investment decision. So is a behavioral aspect of it being planned?
No, this is very, very important nowadays because as Ranjit was talking about that, what are the tools available to understand you better? So there are a lot of surrogates you create out of it and to understand better. So basically, ऐसा लगता है कि मतलब मुझे अपने बारे में नहीं पता है बहुत कुछ, लेकिन जो मुझे कुछ डेटा दिखा रहा है उसको मेरे बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा पता है. And actually it comes out like that. So that is the practical reason for a success of an Amazon and Spotify is basically they understand your trend, tag those surrogates, and basis that surrogates they build a profile of you which probably is more of you than you yourself know it. And that aspect of behavioral science is it will play a big role for any wealth manager to give a right set of play for the customer, to a right set of information to that customer, to a right set of display, if I can say so, to the customer. Because if I don't understand the behavior of the customer, which many of the times it is on the subconscious mind, कस्टमर को भी वो बिहेवियर के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा पता नहीं है, लेकिन जब वो मेरे वेबसाइट पे आता है या मेरे प्लेटफॉर्म पे आता है और अगर मैंने वो टूल्स को यूज़ करके आई हैव गिवन हिम दैट लिमिटेड इन्फॉर्मेशन, प्रोबेबली ही इन द सबकॉन्शियस माइंड इज मोर कंफर्टेबल एंड ही सेड दिस इज अ बेटर प्लेस. Now a lot of science has gone behind it, lot of technology has gone behind it, and you will not come to know that what is going behind, but at the front of it you will realize that I'm more comfortable here. I more belong here, so that's the kind of an feeling which the customer will get over a period of time, where we at the back end has to use the behavioral science and the technological support to create enough surrogates to build his profile. So एक ज़माने में होता था कि भाई 4 प्रोफाइल है, हमारा एक कस्टमर है, ब्रोंज है, प्लैटिनम है, गोल्ड है और ये है. बट अभी now probably we'll have to have 500-700 profiles of the customer where I can dissect data more in detail through a data lake kind of a setup and create his profile which is him, his more of him and less of anybody else. So it is not about generalized profiling. It is all about very customized and very personalized experience for that customer, and a lot of thing has to go from the behavioral science aspect of it. And then only we can connect with the customer. Otherwise, as I said, customer तो रहेगा, provider रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा पता नहीं.
Thanks, Anshul. So as we have a few minutes left, maybe we can take a couple of audience questions. So if anybody wants to ask.
Ranjit, I think specific to you. So I'm Gaurav. I work for Goldman Sachs, and we also build those machine learning models. The way you're looking at. But the problem with those machine learning models become the explanation, because ultimately it is a black box. So to your question, the way you were saying the news, you give indices to the trading they can use. First of all, how do you look at the explainability? And just if you can share more light, do you also do some kind of predictive analytics in getting those leading indicators?
Sure, Gaurav, thanks for that question. Just to explain a bit about how we work with customers on that front. So while we are a data provider, what we do not engage in is providing a direct advisory of any sort to the end investor, be it within our institutional customers or be it a retail investor. What we do, however, is partner with customers. And as you would understand probably from your experience, creating a machine-readable news is just the beginning of it, which we do. But actually finding the use case for it and then being able to apply it requires a lot of effort, and it's a long life cycle. So I don't want to undermine the complexity of using a news analytic feed and actually coming up with something that can be actively used by a trader or an investor. And that is why what we do is the experience models that I spoke about earlier, we partner with our customers to firstly understand the use case. So just without sharing the name of one of our customers, one of the largest banks in India has very recently gone with a machine readable news use case in the FX space. So the way we've worked with them is we have a professional services team, we have solution consultants. So it's a very consultative approach, and it's not a one size fits all kind of solution. So to your question, I think if the customer has a use case defined, it's a lot easier for us to explain how to use this data. But to my knowledge, in a lot of cases, customers themselves struggle with defining the use cases. So we try to partner in that case and also bring some of the global insights or knowledge that we have from other markets. So maybe that's a good conversation for us to take up after this event. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, we have run out of time. I would like to thank my panelists here, and they have given us amazing insights. So thank you all. And with that, I'll hand it over to.
Yeah, I guess we have another question right there.
You have. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll take one more question.
Okay. So Sachin, this side from IIT Delhi. So like more questions to Ranjit. So how you ensure while going for sentiment analysis and analytics that fake news don't come? So looking for the behavioral aspect that Anshul said. So how you manage things, because as a wealth, I'm investing some money. I get easily influenced by fake news and other news. I don't know it's fake or true, and I get sometimes very excited about, and I invest a lot of money, and the events go wrong side. So how you ensure as analytics?
I know we have very little time, but it's a very interesting question. And I'd like to share something that we are doing in that space. So we've developed actually an application. I mean, when I say we, with Reuters, called Tracer, and you can look it up online. What it tries to do is make sure that fake news, first of all, gets filtered out of our entire news feed. And the way they do it is they look at it from different dimensions. So for example, geographical dimension is one of the things. We are all right now in Pragati Maidan. Somebody could, just tweet that there is a hoax, right? There's a fire at this event, or some hoax to just get eyeballs for their Twitter handle, or, for their Facebook handle, or whatever that people use today. Now, how do you determine a fake news from a real news? It's a very interesting thing. And what we do is we take a geographical filter to detect how many news similar to that news are emerging within a certain geography. So within X number of square kilometers. That's one of the filters applied. Second is how many times has this particular news been repeated, and what has been the time lag between the repetition. So for example, if you collaborate with 50 people to make it look real, you could be sending that tweet out at the same time. But if it gets repeated, typically it does not happen at the same time. There is a certain time interval to it. So we have developed some applications which address the fake news aspect of it. And interestingly, what that application also helps us do is get to the real news the fastest, because it's constantly scanning for news to determine the fake from the real, and that also gives us an edge in terms of getting real news first. So that's how we try to address it. But to your question, it's not a foolproof thing that anybody can claim to have, but these are some of the efforts that we've made.
I think just adding to what Ranjit just said, how we try to answer these kind of questions is basically, rather than categorizing and tagging news or content, what we try to do is we categorize and tag customers. So we try to discover their inherent motivations, right? I mean, generally, and in terms of how you identify that, I think gamification principles actually play a significant role there. So if you identify who is there, who is interacting with your algo, with your product, or with your business, and if you are well aware of the right frameworks on how these customers or these users are motivated, you would be able to modify your digital journey accordingly. So that's what we do.
On a lighter note, to IIT Delhi है ना, तू ही निकालने वाला है इसका solution थोड़े दिनों में.
So with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and sharing your expert opinion and experiences with us. Well, let's keep that applause coming, ladies and gentlemen.